the whole section.
Woo. So we're doing it's going to take like 4 days.
It's 4 days. We're 4 days on chapter 37.
Wow.
Okay? So, this is on page 694, talking about the nervous system. Nervous system real important to the AP people. Because it's how cells communicate with one another. And cell communication is one of the big ideas, one of the big topics that they like. So, there are a lot of organisms, like, say, a sponge. A sponge is an animal where the cells don't really communicate with one another very quickly. But these hydras, this is called a cnidarian. It's like a jelly, related to a jellyfish. They evolved a nervous system so that the cells could communicate quickly. Communicate. And their nervous system is called a nerve net. And a nerve net, basically, if you touch one part of the hydra, an electrical signal will go out and tell the other cells that it's been touched. And so the other cells could maybe react appropriately. Like maybe one of the tentacles will be programmed to strike downward to hit whatever's touching the hydra.
What kind of signals?
They're electrochemical signals is what they are. And we're going to learn tomorrow how those signals move and work. It's almost like electricity. And the little nerve fibers are almost like wires transporting signals around. So hydras are the simplest animals with nervous systems. And plants never evolved nervous systems, so really animals are the only things that have them. Now, even more complicated than this nerve net that the hydra has is the planarian's nervous system. The planarian has a ladder-like nervous system. Do you see how it looks like you can climb it like a ladder? It has two nerve cords that run down the left side and the right side, and they're connected by nerves that go across. And then it has a huge bundle of nerves in the head region. We call a huge bundle of nerves a ganglia, or ganglion.
I have a ganglion.
Yeah, everybody does.
Oh, you mean one of those little air bubbles in your body?
No, that's not a ganglion.
What's that?
Then what's a ganglion? Isn't there such thing as a ganglion?
A ganglion?
A ganglion?
This is a ganglia.
So then what's the nerve system called? Ganglia?
You sure that?
So this thing, I don't know what you have.
Remember when I used to have that? We could play with it.
This thing, a ganglion, which is a huge collection of nerve cells in one area, if it's located in the head region, you know what the slang for that is?
Brain.
A brain. Do it, Jonathan. This is the first organism that has a brain.
Just like a net of nerves.
A bunch of nerves in a big lump together in the head region. So that the planarian can think a little bit. And we don't know how thinking works, but we know it works through connections between neurons. Neurons sending signals back and forth to one another. Somehow that produces thinking. And they're still trying to figure out how thinking works. But they know it's from connections between nerve cells.
So ganglia is just a lump of nerves.
A ganglion is a lump of nerves. The earthworm has a brain also, and a long nerve cord that runs down its stomach. We say it's a ventral nerve cord. Insects have ventral nerve cords too. Worms and insects. Their nerve cords run down their stomach. Our nerve cords don't run down our stomach. You know where our nerve cord runs down?
Our back.
Our back. So we have what's called a dorsal nerve cord. Dorsal means back, ventral means front. is interesting. It has two ganglia.
Two.
It has a front, what we call an anterior ganglion. That means a big ganglion in the front, that's its brain. But it also has a posterior or thoracic ganglion is what we call this. One toward the back. So really, a crab has two brains. But we don't call it a brain if it's in the back. We only call it a brain if it's in the head. Yeah.
So the earthworm has a frontal nerve what?
Huh? Yeah, Google it. Yeah.
This earthworm here,
Yeah.
it's got a brain
Uh-huh.
and a ventral nerve cord.
So that's the front.
That's its stomach. That's what it crawls on. The ventral is the stomach. It's not the front because it's laying down.
Does it really have a back?
Dies, because his whole thing's in there for him.
What's that?
Is that why he keeps moving when he dies? Because his whole thing's in there.
Yeah, it takes a while for the
Cells to
Wait.
die.
cells to die.
Do worms really have like stomachs and like backs, or is it just kind of all?
Yeah,
one stomach?
they actually do. There's a stomach side that it crawls around on.
Is there any way you
And
can
a top
like tell?
side. Yeah, they're different colors.
There.
The stomach side of an earthworm is usually light colored, and the back side of an earthworm is usually dark colored.
Okay, I've
So it blends
I've
in.
never really looked at earthworm.
You never liked earthworms?
I've never like really
I
examined
always
one.
stayed for earthworms.
Check out the squid. The squid has a big brain
You brought it back to life.
right there between its eyes, and it's got these giant nerve fibers that run all over its body. Squids' nerve fibers are really big because in order to send a signal quickly, a nerve fiber can do that by growing larger. The larger the nerve fiber, the faster the signal moves. The largest invertebrate animal is the squid. So it's got the biggest nerve fibers. Vertebrates invented a different way to get their signals moving fast. They invented a substance called myelin.
Who did that?
Of vertebrate animals like us.
So like
They evolved a nervous system that has a little covering over it called myelin that causes the signal to go real fast, but the nerve fiber doesn't have to grow big. So vertebrate nerve fibers are small and covered with myelin, but invertebrates didn't evolve myelin. And so the biggest invertebrates have the biggest nerve fibers because they have to transport their signals faster.
what is spinal fluid?
It's a fluid that surrounds your brain and spinal cord,
Okay.
cushions it and nourishes it.
Okay.
It's like lymphatic tissue for lymphatic fluid for your brain.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it circulates, it delivers oxygen and nutrients and stuff, and it cushions. We'll talk more about that later. Look at this cat. It's got its brain and a dorsal nerve cord.
You have two brains?
No, that's this part of the brain is called the cerebellum, and this part of the brain is called the cerebrum. The cerebrum is where it does all its thinking and remembering, and the cerebellum is in control of its muscles.
Isn't it like our medulla?
So is the cerebellum kind of like the stuff that you don't really think about that like your body does for you?
Yes, it's the cerebellum controls muscle coordination.
The cat has a medulla too,
If
right?
you watch me swing a golf club, everything's really coordinated. It makes the ball go like 300 yards. Most people don't have that much coordination because their cerebellum has not learned the swing as
Oh,
well.
my cat looks like a dog.
We'll talk more about that later too.
So does the cat have, does the hindbrain act as the medulla, or?
No, the medulla oblongata, yeah, is down here.
Okay.
It's part of the brain too.
It's like
It's part of
every-
what we call the brainstem.
Every mammal has medulla on the brainstem, right?
It's on the brainstem. We'll learn the parts of the brain 2 days.
So this cat has myelin covering its nerve.
Yes, because it's a vertebrate. All vertebrates have myelin on the nerves, and we're going to learn about myelin tomorrow. Y'all are so excited.
Woo!
So look, as we travel through the organisms, we go from very simple nervous system
Bladder.
to very complicated nervous system. The mammals have the largest brains of all. And And so this is an example of the evolution of the nervous system, because if you look back through the fossil record, by no coincidence, these are the first animals to appear in the fossil record. These came later. These came later. And the later and later you get, the more developed the nervous system is. So the nervous system evolved to be more and more complex.
So the crab and the squids are simple?
Are simpler than the vertebrate nervous system is more complex, because it's got the myelin and the bigger brains.
Nerd. Sorry. Continue. We humans have the evolution.
This shows some of the parts of the brain right here, which we're going to talk about later. This is the basic way that the brain looks in organisms. The olfactory bulb. Do y'all know what the word olfactory means?
Smell.
Smell, that's for smelling.
Yeah.
That senses molecules. The cerebrum is memory and thinking.
So we need to know this?
Yeah, we do it again in 2 more days if you want to wait a couple of days.
No. We're on top of it.
The thalamus and hypothalamus, those control some of the automatic things, like the hypothalamus controls hunger and thirst and growth and
How big
body temperature and stuff. There's your pituitary gland, that's the master gland. We call all this part forward the forebrain, because it's forward in the body. The optic lobe, you know what that's for? Vision. And it's part of the midbrain. And then the cerebellum, that's the muscle control part I was talking about, and the medulla oblongata. Those are what we call the hindbrain. And you see this kind of model change as organisms evolve. Like, it might not all look exactly like this. In humans, the cerebrum is huge. This part is giant compared to the rest. The cerebrum is, well, I got one right here. All this is cerebrum. How big it is. And there's the rest of it.
That's the brain.
This is a brain. It's a model of a brain. It's not a real brain.
Which part's the front?
This is the front. This is the back. The cerebrum is grown all big and all the way around. And there's the rest of the brain. So you'll see modifications of this throughout the different organisms. The cerebrum is where you do all your thinking, though, and that's why it's so big in us. We do a lot of thinking. Most animals don't. If you ever sat there and watched a spider or something and go, I wonder what it's thinking. It's not thinking.
Why? So there's 2 cerebrums?
It doesn't have much of a cerebrum. That's where you do your thinking. It's more. It more runs on reflex. Something touches the web here, then there's a program that it runs
So it has
through.
a cerebellum.
Well, it has all these parts, but its cerebrum is not very big. So it can't do much thinking. It can do some, but not nearly as much as we can do.
Dogs have a bigger olfactory bulb than that.
Yes, much bigger. And better sense of smell.
What is the pituitary?
Pituitary gland, that's a gland that squirts out a bunch of different hormones, and we're gonna learn all those hormones when we get to the hormone chapter.
What is the medulla oblongata
The
do?
medulla oblongata controls heart rate and breathing, and a lot of your emotions. The emotions are actually scattered through here, but fear, anger, love, sex drive is kind of.
Where's the talking one?
Talking, a lot of that's in the cerebrum.
What's the hypothalamus?
Hypothalamus controls the pituitary as well as does some other things. But it's involved in things like hunger, thirst, blood pressure, body temperature,
I thought the limbic system
growth.
dealt with most of the emotions.
Yeah, the limbic system is all through here. naked man. And the naked man has different parts of the nervous system. So we got to learn all the different levels of the nervous system here. The central nervous system is what's in blue. It's basically the brain and spinal cord. That's the central nervous system. So it's often called the CNS, central nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is everything else, and that's all the stuff in gold here. All the nerves that come off the brain and spinal cord make up the peripheral nervous system. Now, the peripheral nervous system can actually be broken down further. There are really two parts of it. The somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Somatic and autonomic. The somatic system is the signals that go to your muscles or come from your skin to your brain. That's the somatic system. Soma means muscle, I think, in Greek or Latin or something. Or soma means body, is what it is. So the somatic signals, the somatic motor fibers that go to your muscles, those are under your voluntary control. You can control your muscles. I can go like this if I want to. I'm in control right now. Although it doesn't probably look like it. I'm controlling these muscles. That's how I dance when I go to Ziggy's. It clears the floor. So your somatic system you're in control of. That's voluntary. But there's another system called the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic, whenever I hear the word autonomic, I think automatic. It's not under your control. It's out of your control. It is controlled by the brain stem, which you don't have voluntary input into. So it controls all your like your heart rate, the squeezing along of your food through your digestive system, the squirting out of hormones by your glands, the drying up or squirting of sweat glands in their excretions.
Like medulla. That would be something that's like...
The medulla helps control that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So your autonomic nervous system and your somatic nervous system are like two different segments. Somatic you're in control of, the autonomic you're not. Are y'all with me? So, if I take a signal, I just threw that pen across the room. What did I use? The nerve signal that activated those muscles? How did it get there? Somatic. Where did it originate?
Your brain.
Peripheral.
Originated in the central nervous system. The signal went down through the spinal cord, then jumped off at one of these branches right here, and went down to the muscles of my arm as part of the somatic motor fibers to activate these muscles that then threw the pin.
What's skeletal and smooth thigh muscles?
Skeletal muscles are the big muscles on your body that you can see. That, if I say, look at my muscles, I'm talking about my skeletal muscles. The smooth muscles are wrapped around your organs, and they're real thin. They're also wrapped around your blood vessels. And they can they can squeeze your blood vessels off, or they can squeeze food through your intestines and such. They're not very strong. They work in kind of wave-like rhythmic contractions, and they don't have to be powerful, and you can't control them.
Okay.
Now, the autonomic nervous system is actually itself broken into two groups. The sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division.
Can you say those again?
They're right here. Look up here. The sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. The sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system controls your fight or flight response. Have you ever heard of that, fight or flight? If you're walking along the street and somebody jumps out of an alley at you, your fight or flight kicks in. And you're either going to fight or you're going to flee. And you can imagine what your autonomic nervous system is doing in those few seconds after the guy jumps out. It's sending signals that cause your heart to speed up, that cause your airways to dilate, that cause your pupils to dilate so you can take in more light, that cause your adrenal glands to squirt out adrenaline, which helps your muscles get sugar and oxygen faster. All sorts of things go into action when somebody jumps out at you. And that's the sympathetic division of the nervous system taking charge.
So it's
when you sense danger. Sympathetic is when you sense danger. I always remember I have sympathy for someone who is in danger. Sympathetic nervous system. Is that a good way to remember it? The parasympathetic division is exactly the opposite of the sympathetic division. It's active when you're at rest. Right now you might be feeling tired and you're not very active. One thing, if you're trying to go to class after lunch or something, your parasympathetic division is active. Your digestive system is active, digesting food. Your pupils constrict. A lot of the energy of your body is sent toward digesting and taking care of kidneys working and taking, filtering and taking care of your normal everyday processes that don't require much attention. So parasympathetic division is kind of the sleepy, quiet division. The sympathetic division is just the opposite. And they have the opposite effects. Sympathetic division speeds up the heart. Guess what the parasympathetic division does to the heart?
Slow down.
Slows it down. So there's a lot of divisions here to the nervous system. Think about all these words. You got your central nervous system, your peripheral nervous system, your somatic nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, your sympathetic division, your parasympathetic division. There's a lot to it.
Peripheral and what? Autonomic?
Peripheral and central are the two major
And then
divisions.
somatic and autonomic.
Somatic and autonomic are two divisions of the
And
peripheral.
then sympathetic,
Sympathetic and parasympathetic are two divisions of the autonomic. This is a picture of what some nerve cells look like, and I'm going to start to get into this next section, but we'll finish it tomorrow. This is a nerve cell. And a nerve cell has a special look to it. It's got its cell body, which is this part, and that has a nucleus and mitochondrions and everything that a normal cell has. And then it's got all these extensions coming off of it. These extensions look like tree branches. They're called dendrites. The purpose of the dendrite is to increase the surface area of the cell body.
Like Billy.
Like what?
Billy, whatever.
Lily?
Billy. Those
Villi, yeah, they're like villi, yeah. They stick off the cell body, increase the surface area, and the reason why is because nerve cells communicate with one another. And so signals come in to the dendrites to communicate with this cell body. And if there's not a lot of surface area there, there's not a way to communicate with the cell body, because one nerve cell might be connected to 10,000 others. And so the dendrites give space for the connections. You see what I'm saying?
so dendrites give space for connection.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to plug 10,000 cables into one unit, you better have a bunch of things sticking off of it that you can plug into. You see what I'm saying? And this long projection here, that's called an axon. An axon is a very long projection. It can be real long. There are axons that go all the way from your spinal cord to your foot.
Which is why if you
Which is not very long in me, but gosh, in most people it's pretty long. It was a short joke. Thank you, Stephanie. You and I have good, similar senses of humor. Think how long it is in a giraffe. It might be 8 feet long, one axon. And this is the wiring of your body, these axons. And these axons will carry nerve signals. They move through it almost like electricity moves through a wire. And the signal moves very fast as long as the axon is covered with myelin. See these blue cells here? They contain a type of fat called myelin, which is an insulatory substance. It insulates the signal and keeps it moving very quickly. We have a name for those cells. Do you remember what they were called? Didn't you take anatomy?
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
This is the name of what cells?
These cells right here.
Oh.
They're called Schwann cells. Schwann cells. And the Schwann cells surround the axon and insulate it so that the signal moves very quickly. And then you can see this axon ends right here at these muscle cells. These are muscle cells. So this nerve is stimulating this muscle.
You gave that a different name in psychology. Things that insulate.
Synapse.
Synapse.
Yeah. The end of the axon here has a little bulb on it, kind of like, it looks like a light bulb. It's an enlarged area. And where the end of the axon hits the muscle, there's a little space called a synapse, and we're going to learn about that tomorrow.
What's the kind of like circular thing that the dendrite?
Dendrite?
Yeah. What's that thing?
Where?
They're all coming off of.
Here?
Yeah.
That's the cell body.
Wait, so Schwann cells and myelin insulated?
Schwann cells have myelin in them. So yes, Schwann cells hold the myelin that insulates.
You're gonna spell that one.
SCHWANN.
What about myelin?
MYELIN. Nerve cells have different looks. You see, this one looks like this. This one, this is called this is a unipolar neuron. See, it's got the cell body to the side. And it's got this axon here, and this is actually kind of like a dendrite, a receiving signal. And see, these things, the ends of these here, these are embedded in your skin. So somebody touches your skin, these things, that kicks off an electrical signal that travels down like this, down, 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 all the way. And this part is in your spinal cord. So your spinal cord's right here, you see. And that's how the signal gets from your skin all the way to your spinal cord. EKF, you don't seem like you're with me.
I am.
You laying sideways. Look at this neuron. It's kind of weird looking. That's an interneuron.
How do you say that other word, like neuroglia or something?
Neuroglia?
Neuroglia.
Where'd you see that?
In the book.
Where in the book?
I read. I don't know what I read, but I read it.
Huh.
And those are the ones that surround, or like.
Yeah, these nerve cells have a bunch of cells around them helping them out. They're called neuroglia.
And they're the ones that can be produced, but neurons can't.
Yes, the neuron, if the neuron dies, it doesn't come back.
And that's
So
why
you know
it's
how they say when you go out drinking, they're like, oh, you're killing brain cells. Yeah, they don't come back. And so by the time you're old, you've killed a lot of brain cells.
And the
Especially the way you guys party.
So the normally tumors go in the neuroglia.
Normally what?
Tumor cells like end up in the neuroglia. That's why they.
Yeah, because those
multiply.
cells are constantly multiplying.
I figured that out by myself. That's
Good
what I
job.
did myself.
Very nice. Yeah, there's different types of neuroglial cells. We study that more in anatomy. So I'm going to do all this tomorrow. This next part shows how a signal works. And it takes a long time to explain. So I guess that's it.
My dad's in the office.
Is he? Well, he knows all this stuff. You need to go home and ask him about this. Quiz him on it.
Never stop talking to him.
So you read, all you got to read tonight's 37.1. Isn't that great?